Okay, everybody, let's try this again. See if we can make this stream work this time. This is Nils Davis. I am the author of the Secret Product Manager Handbook, and a few things like that. I do this YouTube all the time, every week or so. Try to do it on Monday nights, and I try to get it to be correct, but this time I actually did the whole thing without the mic on. That happens sometimes. It's not very, it doesn't make me feel very professional, but it was a pretty good presentation. I'm going to try to replicate it again. So today's topic is acceptance tests for the Secret Product Manager Framework. Now you may be asking, what is the Secret Product Manager Framework? I will share that with you in a minute. It's kind of obvious. But first, let me talk a little bit about the channel and me. I'm your host. I am Nils Davis. I'm the author of the Secret Product Manager Handbook, which is a book you can get on Amazon or Kindle. I guess those are both. You can get in paperback or Kindle form on Amazon. I'm also product manager, coach, consultant, podcaster, and YouTube personality. I'm a YouTube minor personality, to be realistic. So I get questions from people about product management topics, and today's question is really this one here. Have you considered proposing general acceptance tests for when a project should progress from each of the steps? Now, what is he talking about in terms of the steps? Well, the steps are really what I call the Secret Product Manager Framework, Secret Product Management Framework, which is pretty straightforward. It's in the book. I talk about it in the book. But basically, the idea of the framework is as product managers, what we need to do is we need to find market problems, find and validate market problems, problems that are worth solving. We have to create solutions to those problems, and then we need to take those solutions to market. Now, I will talk about what some of those things mean on a lot of other videos that sort of go into more detail on those. But in this particular talk or video, I'm going to talk about how do we know when we've done those things. Now, the book itself has what I call benchmarks for each of these questions. So there's a market discovery benchmark, and it goes on longer than a page. You just see one page here. And I've got a go-to-market benchmark. How do I know I've done go-to-market correctly, or I'm doing it correctly, or I'm ready to do it? And of course, there's a solutions benchmark. How do I know that I'm doing my solution correctly with respect to the problem that I'm trying to solve? But this video is just a little bit of a maybe a more concise version than what's in the book. So the reason we need acceptance tests, of course, is to help us prevent product failure. Now, if you think about the acceptance tests you might have for a feature when you're building a product, you want to have an acceptance test that help you make sure that the feature is doing the thing that it's supposed to do. Now, when you're building a product, what are the things it's supposed to do? Well, it's supposed to solve some kind of market problem. And in terms of the product being successful, you have to have found a market problem. So there's acceptance tests for, did you do a good job of that? Then there's acceptance tests of, am I taking my solution to market effectively? And there's acceptance tests around, am I actually building the right product? And so I'm going to talk about all those things. Now, the most common reason that products fail is because they don't actually solve a problem that anybody cares about. So nobody's willing to give you money for a product that doesn't do something valuable. And I call that solving a problem. And particularly in the world where I come from, which is enterprise software, it really literally is a problem of some kind that people need to solve. It's not a desire or a need. It's a problem. Sometimes it's an outcome that they can't achieve, but from a business perspective, a desired outcome that you can't achieve is really a problem. It's a business problem, and it needs to be solved. And so that's really what our products need to do. They need to solve a problem. And if they don't solve a problem that people are willing to pay for the solution for, they're not going to be successful. Now, the second most common reason that a product fails is that the go-to-market is not very good. Now, you can build a product that does solve an important market problem and has differentiators and things like that, but you don't do a good job of taking it to market. You don't access the right segment. You don't tell them the right things. And it's usually not you, the product manager, doing that. It's usually the sales team that isn't articulating that well. But typically what the sales team is saying is either something that they made up, or ideally they're saying things that you told them to say, right? Oh, They're telling them about the problem that you found. Anyway, we'll get into this. And then the least common reason for product failure is actually the product itself not doing a good job of solving the problem. Now, sometimes this does happen. And there are products out there that just don't do a good job of solving the problem. But generally speaking, the product is not the big issue with failure. The issue is you're not solving a problem that anybody cares about. That's much more common. Now, most companies fail at an early stage if they're not solving a problem that anybody cares about, but some fail later than that. So let's talk a little bit about what makes a particular problem worth solving. Well, the way it works is that you have to have a problem that enough people have that when you sell it, you can make enough money for the company to be successful. You have to have validated those people are also willing to pay for the solution that you're creating, right? Or if it's a feature, a lot of the things I'm saying apply to features as well as whole products. But for a feature, it's more, does the feature make people more likely to buy your product than the competitors? So you're either solving a big problem, that's what a product does, or you're solving a little problem, that's what a feature does. And are you solving a problem that makes your product more differentiated with your feature, or are you not? Now, there are a lot of features that don't serve this purpose. A lot of features are just, they have to be there. If you think about a project management tool, for example, it has to manage tasks. It probably has to have a Gantt chart. It has to do some kind of resource planning. Those are sort of the basics. But additional features might be things that differentiate you, like how well you manage the resources or whether you can do things with resources that other products can't do, just as an example. So there also has to be a reason for us to be the people solving this problem, right? So maybe the segment that we're attacking is a segment that we already know. Maybe it's technology that we're experts at and other people aren't. Or maybe it's a segment that's adjacent to a segment we already solved something for, so we can create something for this new segment based on things we already know about the current segment we're in. So you need to have some set of those things, or all those things, in order for you to be able to move on from the finding a market problem stage of product management. If you can't sort of explain and articulate how the problem you found meets these criteria, you're probably not going to be able to create a solution that anybody cares about because you want to find a problem that's worth solving. Now, this is somewhat quantitative. No, it's somewhat qualitative, but you can apply some quantitative analysis to it as well. Obviously, things like the size of this market segment is something you might be able to get some quantitative values around. You might be able to get a sense of what the problem is worth to people to have it solved. Like how much are they losing because the problem's not solved, or how much extra effort is going in, how much extra work is going into doing a certain process because they don't have an automated solution or something like that. How much do errors cost? You know, if it's a manual solution that you're replacing, how much do the errors that inevitably arise when there's a manual process, how much do those cost? Those are all ways you can get a sense of the value to the customer of your solution. And you can somewhat derive a value to you of solving that problem based on what the customer recognizes as value. But the bottom line is really, you need to have validated there's a problem out there that's worth solving by you. So the next topic is go to market. So we've created a solution, or we found a problem and we've created a solution. I'm doing it in the order of finding the problem, go to market, and then the solution, because that's the order of importance. But so the next piece is the acceptance test for go to market, and it really drives off of what you learned about the problem in many ways. For one thing, you want to be able to tell to marketing, here's the people that we want to sell this product to, because they meet certain criteria, like they have the problem that we solve, or they're in a particular segment of the market that we know typically has this problem. So one of the acceptance criteria, though, for go-to-market is, can you reach those people? And typically that means, is there a way to describe them in such a way that marketing can create programs that go out and reel in those prospects? Then you have to be able to make sure that those prospects, the ones that come in, are qualified to buy your thing, that they're actually good prospects. So you need to be able to do discovery, and you need to be able to do qualification. And these are oftentimes things that you do that as the product manager, you give the sales organization tools for doing a good job of this. For example, if I am the product manager for a project management tool, and I use this as an example because I worked in project management for quite a long time as a product manager. If I go to the sales organization and the marketing team and say, hey, I've got this project management tool, please go find people to buy it and try to sell it to them. And then they would say, oh, okay, project management, I think I understand that. That's like Microsoft Project. And they would go try to sell it like Microsoft Project. And they would sell against people that are using, they would sell to people who are using Microsoft Project. They'd sell against things like Microsoft Project, Trello, Asana, maybe things like that. Now, my particular product was not good for that. It didn't compete well in that space. And in fact, what I really needed to tell them was, I have a project management tool that's really for mid-size enterprises and municipalities that have between 100 and 1,000 projects in flight at any one time, and maybe up to a couple hundred of people, resources working on these projects, from 10 to 100, on each project. And that's my sweet spot, and particularly ones that have a lot of challenges with resource management. Now, having given them, the sales organization, the marketing organization, that much detail, they now can do a much better job of going out and finding the type of people that would be able to use my product and for whom my product is competitive against something like Microsoft Project. Now, I'd really want to give them more than that. There's a lot more types of things that I would want them to know about the product and about how to discover if a prospect is really a good prospect and is really qualified, and to do discovery about the types of problems that this particular prospect has versus this prospect, because that's going to help me or help them do a better job of demoing and a better job of handling objections and things like that. So I want to give them a lot of that information. So that's part of the acceptance test. Am I ready to go to market? Do I know how to answer those questions and to give the sales and marketing teams the information they need to be successful at getting prospects in, qualifying prospects, discovering their needs, handling objections when we get into the sales process. So those are the acceptance tests there. Now, finally, for the solution itself, the big acceptance test that I think is most important is, are we designing it with the acceptance criteria for the solution being that it solves the problem, as opposed to, is it usable? Not that interesting if it doesn't solve the problem. Is it high performance? Not interesting if it doesn't solve the problem. And in fact, a solution that solves the problem in a good way, even if it's not very usable, is more valuable than a usable product that doesn't solve the problem. This is kind of obvious. I think it's obvious. But it's surprising how often we put the emphasis on the wrong thing. Now, it's also the case that you want to have differentiators from the other potential products that are in the market for solving the same problem. And sometimes that differentiator is usability. Sometimes it's performance. But sometimes it's an integration with something that the other competitors don't have that's very important in the market. And, a company like Apple does a lot of their differentiation on usability and elegance of design and beauty and things like that. And that enables them, with their market position, to charge a lot and to be very profitable. But if you look at a company like Craigslist is not that usable compared to a lot of things you could imagine for that kind of a site. But it has other things going on, and it crushes its competitors all the time, even if they're more beautiful and more usable. It's probably pretty decently high performance because it's not very usable. But Craigslist goes and kills industries right and left because it's got something that the competitors don't have and that constantly allows it to differentiate. So I don't really recommend making crappy products. I don't want you to get that sense that that's really a goal. The product isn't crappy, though, if it solves the problem better than the competitors, or in a way that makes it a better choice for the customer than the competitors or the other alternatives. So if you're wondering about this whole idea of crappy products that have something over the other products in the market, even if they're not as easy to use and things like that, The Innovator's Dilemma is a book that's all about that, and about how there's all these markets where there's a mature, robust solution, but there's something that some segment can't get from the incumbent, that some upstart comes in with something kind of crappy, but that does that thing, and eventually the upstart becomes the big market owner and the old market owner goes out of business. That's happened over and over again, particularly in tech. So if you can pass these acceptance criteria, then you are much more likely to have a successful product in the market. If you can't pass them, then you're much more likely to be this poor, sad clown who is just sad because the product is not working for people. So that's what happens if you don't pay attention to these things. So I may have missed some things in these acceptance tests. I'd love to hear your comments and feedback and complaints, and you can tell me when I'm wrong, where I'm wrong. I love to get the comments. I always respond. I might even do another video if there's something meaty that I need to respond to. That's always fun for me. So if you want to learn more about me or see more of my stuff, the book I mentioned, it's available on Amazon on both paperback and Kindle. You can also get it through my website, which is secretpmhandbook.com. There's a blog there as well. I write occasionally about product management topics. It goes up and down in terms of the frequency. I have a podcast, All the Responsibility, None of the Authority, which is at alltheresponsibility.com. I have a YouTube channel, which you're watching, and I'm on Twitter, and I do tweeting about product management and occasionally about politics. I try not to, but sometimes I can't help myself. So that's all about me. If you like this video, found it interesting, found it valuable, please like it, share it with your friends, your other product management friends who might find it valuable as well. You can subscribe to the channel to learn about new videos that are coming up. I'll put some additional resources down below in the show notes. And as I said, your comments mean a lot to me. So if you would be so kind as to drop me a comment, I would love that. And I will respond to it. And that will be very fun for me. I always like to get comments. Anyway, that's it. This is Nels Davis signing out. And I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about acceptance criteria for the secret product management framework. And until next Monday, I do these videos every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, in case you missed that. And I will see you next Monday. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining.